Lenovo Legion Go 2 is here. I've had it for several days. What I'm going to talk about in this video, I've already put out a bunch of my full review and a bunch of game tests. I'm showing things like different wattages and that kind of stuff, and I have much more coming in terms of game testing. But one of you guys commented on my video and said, why don't you do, or could you do, kind of like a tips and tricks type thing, specifically for optimizing performance on this? Kind of like, okay, you got yourself a Legion Go 2, what should you do? So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to talk about what you should do when you first get it. Very simple things, maintenance, upgrade kind of stuff, just how to keep it running. Optimal in day one, what you should tweak here. One of these is critically important. If you don't do this, your performance will be garbage and you're gonna be like, this thing sucks, but it was just one setting that you had to fix. So we're gonna go over that. Then I'm gonna show you some wattage tweaks that you can do to increase performance, decrease noise, increase battery life, that kind of stuff, and a little bit of game optimization. So let's jump right in. I'm gonna show you guys what to do day one when you get your Legion Go 2, what you should tweak and what you should follow. This is more or less also gonna be applicable for like Legion Go S. Honestly, like the new ROG Ally, when it comes out, there'll be a few things here that are different, but a lot of the new handhelds, and this is what you should do on day one and going forward. So potentially the first thing you're going to want to do is increase your VRAM, which I've already done. When you get your Legion Go set up, you're in Windows here. I just did a first restart here, so there's nothing really on it, just so we can redo this part here. You'll come in here and you'll see memory. Now, this system has 32 gigabytes of memory. You can see that there. 32 gigabytes. That's for the whole system. You also have your graphics card down here, which is actually not like a dedicated graphics card. I'm just using that as a lingo. It's actually part of an APU, which means you have your CPU and your GPU, and they're in one chip. That's the way that it is. So that's on the motherboard there, and it doesn't have dedicated memory. So a graphics card, like you put it in your computer, has dedicated memory. That's not how these work. The way that the iGPU does is it actually borrows memory from your system. Right, so your system has 32, and you notice here, I only have 24 for the system. So that's standard memory, like RAM memory, if you have a system like that. So, when you have lots of tabs open, that kind of stuff, you can see it's 6 right there. Let's open up just like whatever it is here. Okay, so 6, now we're at 6.3 because we've opened up more stuff. So memory is, how much storage you can have, how many things you can have open at one time. But the thing is, your GPU takes some. So here I have it set to basically 8 gigabytes. So it's going to take some of that memory from the shared system and use it for that. And that's important. If you've heard VRAM, video memory, that's what it is. So when you're running games, the games have textures. So say you have Harry Potter, right? You have Harry Potter, you turn it down to low. All those game textures, like the visuals you're seeing, are held in memory, but they're held in this memory here, video memory. If you increase that, your video memory demand goes up. And so what happens as you increase your video memory requirements, you increase your settings go up, your video memory requirements go up. So I'm just going to go full shutdown here. It says you're supposed to hold volume up or volume down. I couldn't figure it out. It said volume down on one resource and volume up on the other, so I just hold both. So wait till the system is fully shut down. When the lights turn off, okay. Hold volume up or volume down, or in my case, both, because I don't know which one it is. Turn the system on. Light, you can see the lights there. Give it some time. And you can see that there. Now we can go into the BIOS, and there are some settings in here that we can tweak. So UMA graphics is integrated graphics. That's what it means. This is a pretty basic thing. Like you have your modes, some very basic stuff, what type storage I have, and the basic format here, Z90, 890M, Z2 Extreme. You can go with more settings. Don't worry about your fan going louder. It usually does that in BIOSes. Come in here, configuration, nothing interesting. General settings, this is like Windows stuff. You don't really want to play with this kind of stuff here, to be honest. I'd probably just leave it. You can downclock your memory. There's no point in doing that. Leave this. And here's where we want to be. So you can see here, this was set to 2. So this operating system was set to 2. It's fine for Windows. 2 gigabytes of VRAM is more than enough for a Windows type use. But as soon as you start to game, it's not enough. I can guarantee you it's not enough. You could put it up to 4, but it's still not enough. In my opinion, not even close to being enough. The power of this GPU in this system can mean that you can get acceptable performance in games and with settings in those games where you would benefit from 8. You could go higher. You could actually go to 16, which would give 16 gigabytes to your system, like your system memory for games, all that kind of stuff, and 16 gigabytes to your GPU. I think it's overkill in some cases. You can certainly play with it. The other option is you can go auto. and it will allocate as much as it needs to video memory. Theoretically, it'll work most of the time, and I usually find that works just fine. It'll allocate how much it's needed, but I typically just go 8, and I can keep an eye on how much video memory I'm using if that's an issue, but then I know there's just like no weirdness going on. But if you're worried about it and you're like, I don't know, man, you can just put it to auto. I didn't change anything, but you're gonna then hit F10, which I can't do here because I don't have that. So you're gonna touch that, or you're gonna come down here and go exit saving changes. If you change that, you're gonna exit saving changes. I haven't changed anything, so it doesn't matter. And then we boot in, and then what you'll see is that VRAM would go from 2 gigabytes up to 8 gigabytes. This is foundational critical. I'm actually kind of surprised that Lenovo didn't set it to 8 from the get-go, from the Legion Go, because there are going to be users, I can guarantee there will be users who are going to buy this handheld and be like, man, the performance blows. I'm getting really like crappy performance, and it's because this was set to 2, which is not even close to enough. Your games will tank. Actually, when I first got the handheld, I tested it and I loaded up a game. I was like, man, this is really bad. And I just knew it was VRAM because I have this iGPU in my handheld, my daily driver handheld. So I knew it was VRAM, but some people would not know that. And they'd be like, man, this thing runs like actual shit. But that's why. Okay, so now here is Legion Space. You're going to be using this probably quite a bit. There's some things in here that you can use, like a store and a library. I don't care about that. So if you use multiple platforms, this is actually a good option. I might actually do this on the next time I have access to like a Legion laptop or something like that. It's kind of a good idea. But controller settings here, you can do lighting, button mapping, that kind of stuff, gyro, trigger settings, all this kind of stuff. It's good. Go through here, play with it, figure out what you like, and be happy with it. Here's a very important section though. This is where you have your performance settings. Now, this is where you're going to be playing with things. If you watch my review or my game testing videos, I do a lot of this in them. You can also access this by this button here. It'll come up here, and there's the same tabs, but the performance one is the first one to come up. You can do various things. So you have your different performance modes. Quiet, lower watts, balanced, still fairly low watts, performance, medium, custom. You can increase the watts. You can also play with your fan settings in here. I'll get to that in a minute. It's not what I want to talk about here specifically, but I will get back to that. Display settings, you can do quick refresh if you want more battery life. Kick down to 60 hertz, it will increase your battery life. You're on a plane or something like that. Brightness, of course. Should turn that up for the purpose of what I'm doing right now, to be honest. Audio, you can tweak your volume here. It uses Realtek, so whatever. You can actually do that in other places. You can also get things like FX tools, that kind of stuff. This is a very important area here. Not only is it going to show how much storage you have, but you're going to do updates here. There are no updates right now to the Legion Go because I've already done it, but you're going to get your hardware level updates here. There are Windows updates. You get Windows updates for stuff like Windows features, Windows versions, all that kind of stuff, and those are important to do as well. But your hardware level stuff, GPU, Wi-Fi chip, like controllers, all that kind of stuff is going to be in here. So periodically, or if you check like Reddit or something like that, whatever, and people are like, oh, there's an update, or just come in here every week or two and just be like, is there an update? BIOS updates will be done through here as well, and that can address things like performance profiles, security updates. It's very important. So this is an important area to remember. Settings, do it again. Settings, disk and drives, check for updates. And that was that there. Now the other spot here, close that out. Yep. There's of course Windows updates. Windows updates, I mean, you don't always need to like constantly update Windows, but you should update Windows from time to time. There can be security breaches and stuff like that in here. You don't want people hacking your Windows. Windows is still kind of like, it's a whatever operating system. It's the best we have, but it's still garbage type thing, but you should update in here. Just be aware of that. Other things you can do. You do want to potentially decrease some of your startup apps. This system is not hurting for RAM, like the Legion Go 1, ROG Ally 1, etc. But you can still kill off some startup apps. So I went into, I'll show you what I did. I did that very fast. Control-Alt-Delete is the way I do it. Task Manager, or you can come here, type in Task Manager. In here, come over here to the left, Startup Apps, and here's your startup apps. Click on that there, and it'll show you which ones are starting. I don't want this stuff to start up. It'll just eat into my RAM, and I don't want crap running in the background. I don't need Microsoft Edge launching when I start Windows. I don't need OneDrive at all, to be honest. I just delete it. Radeon software is fine. Realtek, fine. Security, fine. But all this other crap, I don't want any of that starting when I start up my Windows. These systems come fairly clean, so you don't need a lot of like stuff there, but you can get rid of it. Another thing you can do here, this is not critical, but I'm not a big telemetry kind of guy. So you can tell me here, you can go privacy settings. This will come up here and you can go through and you can turn all this telemetry off. I don't know if it affects performance. It might. I mean, Windows constantly pinging home and like trying to get data and stuff like that. That's why Windows is basically free these days, because you're the product now. Like, you are the product, right? So you come in here, you turn off all this crap, feedback frequency, just come in here and go through these, just turn all this crap off. Location services, like, you don't need all this kind of stuff. That's fine there. Like voice activation. Like, I don't need this. This is a handheld. I don't need contacts, right? So you can turn this stuff off. I don't know if it affects performance. It might, but it's just as a rule for me. I turn all this crap off. Yep, that's the thing. It may affect performance. I don't know, but you can do it. It takes 5 minutes, and it just makes you feel good about it. So that's that. Those are the settings there. You get your updates, you get your Legion space, you get your VRAM. Now let's load up a game, and I'm going to show you some different game settings, wattages, and things to play with, the actual optimization of games on a handheld. Okay, so let me show you some tuning. There's two things you can tune. You can tune the wattages of the system, how many watts, how much power is going into the iGPU, CPU. That will affect performance, but it'll also affect fan noise, thermals, and battery. You can also tune games. Now, this isn't like a game tuning guide. There are better people out there for that, but I do show a lot of it, and I do it all the time. So I'll show you some. So we'll come in here, our performance turned up. Performance is unacceptable right now, 24 gigabytes. 24 FPS is a little low for me. I'm not a fan of that. Let's go to a little bit more of a static area over here. There's just too many people moving around over there. So we'll come over here, and you can see performance is bad. Okay, it's fine. So then what we do is we come in here. I can recommend some various channels. Hardware Unboxed. Hardware Unboxed? Yeah, they do a lot of like guides to optimizing games. Check out their stuff. There's Daniel Owen. He does more like GPU, like desktop GPU comparisons, but he does show a lot of that kind of stuff. So he's really good too. And there's all kinds of people out there, but Hardware Unboxed makes like guides for games, and they can be very useful. Anyways, so we'll come in here and you can go into your performance modes, right? Handhelds like this, even the 890M here, the iGPU 890M, that is really quite powerful for an iGPU. It's still an iGPU, right? And it's a fairly low wattage iGPU. So you need to be reasonable with your settings. If you're playing a modern, highly demanding game like Cyberpunk, what else is brand new that just came out? The new Silent Hill, Borderlands 4, these type of games, like very high demand 3D titles, especially first person, single player type titles, they're going to be very demanding. So you have to be reasonable with the settings, right? And what your expectation will be. If you're playing online games, typically they're a little bit easier to run depending, and they're a little more CPU heavies, but you also often want higher frames, so that thing. If you're playing slightly older games, 3, 4, 5-year-old games, a lot of those times you can just be like, screw it. Like, we're just going in, a game from 2020, you're probably coming in and ripping Ultra, which sounds crazy, but you probably are, to be honest. That's how powerful these iGPUs are. But in this case here, I mean, Cyberpunk, typically you're looking at like a low type setting. Now you can just go low. This is just low. No scaling, nothing else, just low. See, the performance went from 20 to like 35. Now it's fully playable. 35 to 40. This is a fully playable game. This is an extremely hard area of the game to run, and you can just play. But we can do more, right? The other thing we can do here is we can come in and we can play with scaling, just so you know, 1200p. I'm just going to put that to full screen. You don't really have to, it doesn't make a difference, but I'm just going to do it. Then you can play with other things. So we can come in here, we're still on low, and you can turn on resolution scaling. You can just decrease the resolution. You can go from 1080p to 800p or 720p, right? This is 1200p screen, sorry. So 1200p, you can go down to 800p, you can go to 720p, whatever. You can just decrease the resolution, which means the GPU needs to show less pixels on the screen, meaning it's not as working as hard, so your FPS will go up, right? That's why 4K is harder to run. 4K is more pixels, harder, more data to run. 1440p is less than that, 1080p, 720p, so as you decrease the resolution, your performance goes up. However, you don't need to do that, because if you put your screen at 800p, it's not going to look as good, because it's going to look fuzzy, because this screen is designed to do 1200p, right? Does that make sense? It's designed to do 1200p. That's the native resolution of the screen. So what you want to do here is you can use scaling. So long story short, you will see a 1080p image, but the GPU doesn't have to work as hard, because no longer is it doing 1200p, for example. The GPU is maybe rendering here 800p, right? That's way lower resolution, way less pixels. So it's actually processing the game at 800p, but what you see on your screen is still 1200p. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the game decrease for me. So what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to come in here. You can set on Fidelity FX, AMD Fidelity FX. You may have heard of DLSS if you're like a gamer. DLSS is on the Nintendo Switch. It's also on NVIDIA GPUs. They're just more common. So DLSS is something you may have heard. It's also everywhere in the news and media and stuff. It's the same thing as AMD FSR or Intel XeSS. These are just different technologies to do the same thing. You're going to take this resolution here, you're going to decrease it down to whatever setting in the background, you don't see it. The algorithm that I just said is going to increase back to 1080p so that you get not 800p, you get 1200p, for example, or whatever. The efficiency of this depends on the software. AMD runs faster. So AMD FSR 3 runs faster. There are ways to tweak it and add AMD FSR 4, but that's a different thing. So it runs faster. So whatever you do, if you add scaling, it will increase performance, right? So we'll just come in here. I'm just going to show you an example here. We're going to do that. That'll increase performance. Now, our FPS is way higher, right? We can see we're actually faster than we were before, way higher performance. But with FSR 3, if you increase it too much, you get that kind. Oops, I did not mean to do that. You get that kind of stuff. See that shimmer? See that shimmer there? May not show up on camera, but there's a little bit of shimmer there. We'll come out where you can see a little bit more of it. See that? See how that pixels are jumping around? In fine details, you get stuff like that. And not over here, it's all fine, but in those little areas, you get those little flickers. Now, we can try XeSS instead. Come in here. We're going to go back here again. Zoom out. XeSS. That's Intel XeSS, which, yes, is supported on this GPU. So we're going to go the same thing, performance, XeSS. Go like that, and we're going to come out. The flicker is significantly reduced. It's almost fully stable, sorry. Now, the one thing is, though, the performance is slightly lower. This performance is slightly lower in XeSS. So here's XeSS 54, but it's stable. Clean, sharp, and stable. 54 FPS. Come back. We'll go back to FSR 3. Same mode. Give it a sec. Better performance. We went from 54, 55 up to 60. But we get artifacting. So it's your choice. Do you want to use FSR, AMD FSR, and get FSR 3, for example, and get more performance? I'm just summarizing. This is very crude, but use AMD and get slightly more performance, but at the cost of a little bit more softness and a little bit more things like flicker. In the hardest to run games, yeah, you may say, screw it, I'm going with that. Or do you want the middle ground? Intel XeSS, especially if it's 2.0, where you get not quite as good a performance as AMD, but it's way cleaner and more stable. It's always a balance, right? You're going to come in here, you're going to play with these settings, your like low, medium settings, and you're going to come in here and you're going to play with these here. Now, there are cases where I will actually play with the settings. Now, this is way more complicated. You'd probably just either experiment and fiddle with it, or you can watch something like Gamers Nexus video, Hardware Unbox video. So you can come in here, let's just say that there. You go to low. On a handheld, I typically set it at low. I will put it on scaling almost as a default. I put on scaling even on my desktop. It's just fine. It's free performance, as long as you don't turn it up too much. But we've already established here that XeSS looks good on, we don't want that. XeSS looks good on at least performance for sure. So that's that there. So we're on low. Now you can come in here and you can fiddle. Yes, these GPUs do support ray tracing. I would not do much of it, so I would just leave it off. It's more for native ray tracing. Some games just have forced ray tracing. But you can come down here and you can play with these settings, right? So you're like, you know what? It looks really good on low. It plays really well, but there's a few things I want to increase. Like, I don't really care about, shadows. So you turn them off, right? Or turn them on. I don't really care about cascade shadow resolution. So you turn it low. I don't really care about distant shadows because you can't see them. I don't care about fog. I don't care about clouds. I don't care about dynamic decals. I don't care about reflections, screen space reflections, which you probably do want to have low, not completely off, or it'll look weird, right? Some surface scattering, like you don't care about these things. But you're like, you know what? I need things like level of detail, like just that, or textures. Textures are a big one. If you see textures, you can often be like, you know what? I'm going to turn up models, textures, foliage, or vegetation, depending on the title. Those are the three that I like to do. Again, that was textures, models, and foliage, plants. I typically put those from low up to medium where possible, and I turn everything else down to low. Sometimes they kind of group it into level of detail. It's like geometry, that kind of stuff. It'll just be in there. And so that there, the game may look better to you. So everything is still low, like the reflections and the lights and all that kind of crap are still low. But, you know, when you go right up to somebody, maybe they look better. Maybe the textures look better because you've turned the textures from low up to medium. These are things you can fiddle with. If you don't know and you don't care, just throw it on low and just throw on some scaling and then fiddle with it until you get the performance that you want. Right? 56, 57, it's still fine, to be honest. Now, you can probably hear the handheld. It's not too bad, but you can hear it. It's going, it's noisy. It's not that bad, but you can hear it. If you also unplug this, if I were to unplug this, I can't because my game's plugged into it, but if I unplug this, I will start draining battery. I'm maxed out right now, so my system is draining a lot of battery very fast. Watch my review, I go through all of this, the battery type stuff, but we're burning more battery because we're using more watts, and it's noisier and it's hotter, right? So you may come in here and you say, you know what? I'm going to decrease the amount of watts going to the system. Watch this here. I have to wait for the guy to stop talking. Anytime this Kurt Hansen guy talks, your performance goes down, just so you know. Okay, so he's shut up now. So we're at 55-ish, say 55. We're going to decrease the watts here. Watts are down, performance is down 1 or 2. Come down more. Still very acceptable, right? Can you hear that now? I don't know if you can hear it, but it's it's already much quieter. Let's go down a little bit more. Performance is going down, but it's still good. 25 is the sweet spot on the Legion Go. You can run it at 30 or 47 and just be like, screw it, I don't care. 30 or 37, be like, I don't care. Max it out. It's not that noisy. Honestly, it's quieter than any gaming laptop by a mile, but you're like, I don't care, just max it out and you get max performance. You don't worry about it, you don't think about it. It's not going to overheat, it's not going to damage it, it's fine. But maybe it's on your lap, it's late at night, and you're like, I just don't want to hear this thing, right? I don't want to use headphones, I just want to hear the game. I'm playing something like an RPG, very story-driven game. You're like, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it anymore. So you come in here and you just decrease the watts. It's going to get quieter, it's going to get cooler. You will lose a little bit of performance, but the equilibrium point is 25, based on my testing. What I mean by that is you only lose a little bit of performance, a few percentages of performance here. However, you also lose a lot of temperature. It gets much quieter. That's the equilibrium point. You can go lower, but you might start to lose more and more performance. But if you're looking for you're like, okay, I'm going to get on a plane. I need to be able to game here for as long as possible, right? I need to get as long as possible. We're still above 30. We're still above 30. We're still above 30. We're still above 30. And remember, I don't have frame gen on. I don't use frame gen. That was the cutoff, 14. Right? So you're able to get a 30 type experience with those type frames. Like that's probably a pretty good spot. And what happens here is you massively decrease the number of watts being used. That Kurt Hansen guy's probably talking. Whenever this guy talks, the performance goes down. It's such a nightmare for benching, but it's such a good area of the game to bench. Okay, are you done talking, moron? Okay. Watch the performance go up. Okay, so yeah, I would say for a lot of people, I mean, 16 or even 15 watts if you're like getting on a plane and you want playing a game like this, a super demanding, 3D title, like top of the stack, super demanding, and you're like, you know what, I'm cool with 30. 30 is like Nintendo Switch 2 performance, a lot of console games. You're like, that's fine. Like I'm on a plane, who cares? Right? You're on a train, just max battery life. You get way more battery at 15 watts than 37, right? And you just play with it. You say, what do I want? And then you get off, you plug it in, you're like, you know what? Nah, man. I want to get more performance. I still don't want it to be noisy, but I want a little bit more performance, so you throw it on like that. Right? Your performance goes up by like 50%, and it's no noisier, but you'll lose a little bit more battery. Now, there are, of course, games. The last part of this video, I'm just going to show you the last part of this video, is there are games that none of this really matters, right? So there are basically countless games that you're not going to need very, very high wattage modes and are really just going to absolutely sing on this handheld here. So let's go like this here. And I'm just going to show you this here. This is Final Fantasy Tactics Village Chronicles. It's a remake, 2025, brand new. One of the greatest games ever made. Remastered to become still one of the greatest games ever made. And this thing's going to absolutely sing. So let's come in here. We'll go to a quick battle. Didn't do that. Okay, so here we are. We're going to get, we'll just click that. easy 60. It should be more or less locked, other than some loading points. But we should be more or less locked at 60 here, right? And, oops, let me do that. Watch this. Click on that. I've been playing this on this device at night, not plugged in. And I've been playing at like about, I think I've been running at like 7, no, I think like 8 watts. Watch this. Oops. 6 might be a little low. Oh, okay. I did find that on like the item screen, 6 was low, but even 6 watts. We're talking 6 watts here. And you're going to get crazy good battery life as a result. I'd probably turn it up by 1. I've been playing on 7. I just find that it's like it gives me the 60. If it would let me. Here we go. Go like that. And then you get your 60. This is how I've been playing. 60 FPS locked and no problem. There's going to be tons of games like this, especially like these really high quality Square Enix relaunches that are just, like some of the best games ever made, especially in the RPG space. But you're going to have action games. Like what about like Silk Song, those type games, indie type games or smaller development type games, or just games that aren't designed to be, a graphical monster hog type game, are meant to be just good fun games. These are the type situations where you're going to be able to play them with very good performance. Obviously on Mac you can just like have crazy good performance, but in a lot of cases what I'm talking about here is you can come in here, say you're on a plane, you're at school or something, you have a break, work, have a break, on a train, traveling in a car, throw it onto these really low wattages here, like 7, and you'll really be able to get a lot more battery life, like massively better battery life as a result, but you're still going to get good performance. So don't just expect that, all the time you got to be like, oh, it's a handheld, I just got to go like that, and my battery life sucks. Like, it really does depend on the game. Get a frame rate that you find acceptable, and tune to get there as best as possible.